What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at something pretty exciting, and that is another auction draft result. But look, no more mocks, because with so many fantasy drafts quickly approaching, I thought, why not go ahead and take a look at an actual official auction draft, one of my own personal ones, and in one of my own personal leagues. It is a Yahoo full point PPR 12-person league. One quarterback, two wide receivers, two running backs, a tight end to flex, and then obviously a couple bench spots as well. So I'm going to share the results here with you guys because I think it can be pretty intriguing. A lot of knowledgeable individuals are involved in this league, and so you're not going to see any bot type of nominations here, biddings. I think there's a lot to be learned from the way this draft went. We're going to go ahead and break down some of the big names that were nominated, the costs that they went for, and then ultimately what I think it'll be even more useful is going over each roster, giving them a grade, and letting you guys know, in all honesty, what I think I could have done better, how I wish I could have improved. Now, honestly, I really wish I could have done this live. But that probably would have been a video of over 3.5 hours. That's probably how long this thing lasted. On top of some technical issues, so coming a couple days later after the fact, but still I think it'll be very informative nonetheless. And on top of that, a little bit of a quicker video, so win-win situation there. But before getting into this, a quick reminder, if you haven't already, check out the description on the information how to get yourself the 2019 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It has got great fantasy draft advice just like this in auction drafts and snake formats, on top of player overall rankings in standard PPR formats, individual player bios, and more. So check out all the information for how to get your copy now. But with that being said, let's get right into it. And as you can see, I'm already here on the draft results page on the main screen of Yahoo. And I'm just going to go ahead and go over some of these big name players that were nominated, the cost that they went for. And then we're going to go ahead and look at the team-by-team breakdown, because I think that's where it'll really get interesting. So you see the first couple of players nominated: Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, kind of two quarterbacks right from the start. And I think that goes back to some individuals just wanting to nominate players at a position of not enormous value or enormous need right from the get-go with the quarterbacks, because obviously, at least my league is a league that puts a lot of value on running backs, wide receivers as well. Quarterbacks, tight ends come a little bit later. So seeing quarterbacks here with the first two nominations, pretty interesting. Aaron Rodgers going for $11. All things considered, I think that's actually pretty decent value on a Rodgers. Patrick Mahomes, $31. Again, the one thing that I say for these auction drafts is wait on quarterbacks, folks. Spending $31, I understand Patrick Mahomes is expected to be the number one quarterback, but really, how much is going to be the separation between him and a guy like Aaron Rodgers? For $20, do you really want to go ahead and spend that extra amount of cash? Hell, I can go ahead and probably make the argument that the difference between Patrick Mahomes and a guy that you probably could have gotten for $4 or $5, they could potentially both be top 5 quarterbacks. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have Patrick Mahomes for $31, or that other quarterback that went for $4 or $5, and then have that extra $25, $26 left for you to really make an impact on a big-time running back or wide receiver? To me, the answer is clear. It is the latter. Then you see Saquon Barkley here, one of the elite running backs, and we're going to see some of these elite running back names show up here in a little bit. $73. Something that I wish that I did, I'll tell you guys right from the start here, is be a little bit more aggressive with these elite running backs. But look, I've done enough of these mock drafts and enough of these auction drafts that I had a price set in my mind where I was comfortable going with on these top running backs. And I told myself, look, if it goes past this point, I've got backups, and I know what type of strategy I'm going to use. Ultimately, I'd like to get one of these elite running backs. If not, I've got a backup plan, and I know how I'm going to use my funds after the fact. So maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but I kind of decided to do the latter just on how the auction draft was shaping up. But you see that in the way my roster was constructed in a little bit here. Then Derrick Henry for $21. A prime example of Derrick Henry a guy that, probably shouldn't be nominated this early, but someone that, again, this was actually one of my nominations that I didn't have any interest in, but I just wanted to go ahead, throw him out there, make someone else spend money on him. And $21 probably actually an all right deal for Derrick Henry, but still a player that I had no interest spending that type of money on. Regardless, Tyreek Hill then for $37 I think was actually one of the best values as far as a wide receiver one in this draft. I think Tyreek Hill will be a top 10 wide receiver. So getting him for $37, look, in retrospect, I wish I could have gotten that value for him. David Johnson for $56. I kind of expected that, but to me, I know that pretty much after the top 4 running backs, all these guys have question marks. So I thought I'd rather not go ahead and spend almost $60 on one of those guys. There's other running backs I kind of highlighted that I have circled that I'd rather go ahead and go after. Melvin Gordon, you see here for $37. As we speak, he's still in his contract holdout. People expect this thing to last within the first couple of weeks of the season. So that $37, a little bit maybe high, depending on how you want to look at it. That individual definitely took a risk there. But still, that price is nowhere close to what it was a couple of months, a month ago even, where Melvin Gordon was a first round selection going for around $50, if not more. So if you look at it from that side, potentially a good value pick, but we'll see. It all depends on how many games Melvin Gordon actually plays. DeAndre Hopkins then, $55. Elite wide receiver, the most expensive wide receiver that was bid on, so makes sense. Christian McCaffrey then for $72, again, right in the range of Saquon Barkley. And honestly, the 2 running backs that I had in my mind for the top 4 that I really wanted to target were Ezekiel Elliott and Alvin Kamara. And I knew I would just have to wait and see how it plays out, how the nomination process plays out for them. And as you can see, Ezekiel Elliott is the next name up. He went for $62. And kind of with his holdout, I still don't think it's going to last into week 1. I think he'll have a new deal by then. So I'm not too worried about that. But I was hoping he'd go for under $60. Unfortunately, he went for $62. So even though I still think he's going to be, a guy that's going to be very valuable, there's still some risks there. I thought I could get him for a little bit cheaper, so I decided to ultimately pass on him. Alvin Kamara then, actually the most expensive player in this entire draft, went for $76. I thought that he'd probably go for around 72, 73 again. I was ready to go ahead and pull the trigger on him there, but when I saw this thing get up to 76, and ultimately it could have gotten higher if I got involved in it, I said, all right, no thanks, I'll pass. Then Le'Veon Bell, $53, Baker Mayfield, $9, Damian Williams, $37, kind of interesting considering it was a point in time where that hamstring issue is still prevalent, and the running back by committee issue was floating out there. So maybe Damian Williams for $37, a little bit expensive. Joe Mixon, $46. I don't mind that. I really like Joe Mixon as far as the running back is concerned. Right now, just, man, I just feel bad for the Cincinnati Bengals offense. They've been so unlucky with their injuries there. So I thought I'd rather just go ahead and target a high-octane offense running back. Then you see Travis Kelce, $43, the highest tight end as you would expect as far as value and as far as price. James Conner for $52, a guy that I was thinking about, but ultimately I think he will see some of his production fall to a Jalen Samuels. So for that reason, again, passed on James Conner. Julio Jones for $49, not bad value there. Again, in retrospect, I wish I was a little bit more aggressive with Jones. Zach Ertz, $33, Devontae Adams, $55. Devontae Adams ties the highest wide receiver price along with DeAndre Hopkins. Then Dalvin Cook, $41. Nick Chubb, $47. I think the value for Dalvin Cook at $41 was pretty good. Nick Chubb, $47. Look, man, I wouldn't even spend $40 on Nick Chubb because I've said it before. For the first 10 weeks, he's going to be a stud, but afterwards, he becomes a low-end RB2 in my eyes with Kareem Hunt returning. So I want no part in Nick Chubb, whether it's auction or snake drafts. George Kittle, $35. Amari Cooper, $30. Antonio Brown, $32. I still think Antonio Brown will be a borderline top 10 wide receiver, so I think the value there is all right. Michael Thomas was a wide receiver that I really wanted to target at $52. He went for a little bit more than I expected, but I knew, again, there's a great list of top 1 or top 10 wide receivers that are all wide receiver ones this year. So I knew if I didn't get Michael Thomas, there were other guys that I'd target. Juju Smith was another target of mine, but going for $49, I decided to pass. T.Y. Hilton 24, Matt Ryan $9, Keenan Allen 29, not bad value there. Although it'll be interesting how this ankle issue of his plays out. Odell Beckham for $52, Adam Thielen for 31, Todd Gurley for 50, Marlon Mack for 26. And I don't want to give away too much of the guys that I drafted, so I'm not going to specifically tell you guys so far who it was until I specifically reveal my roster to you guys. But again, just pointing out some of these values here. Marlon Mack for 26, Kerryon Johnson for 31. Kerryon Johnson is a guy that has seen his value skyrocket here, not only in Snake, but in auction drafts as well. Leonard Fournette, look, say what you will about him, no matter how you think he will do. I think $22 for Leonard Fournette is a very good price. Tom Brady, then, Chicago Bears defense. This is probably the most suspect nomination and bid in this entire draft, getting a defense for more than $2-3. But look, some people are going to go ahead and overpay for a defense, overdraft a defense. It happens every single year, no matter what league you find yourself in. Robert Woods for $21, pretty good value there. OJ Howard, Mike Evans for $40, probably one of the last top 10 wide receivers. David Montgomery, another one of these running backs that has seen his value go up, $23. James White, 19. Then Aaron Jones for 30, Kenny Golladay for 14, Devonta Freeman for 27, Luck for $4, Deshaun Watson for 11, Stephon Diggs for 24, good value there. Chris Carson, 25, another one of these running backs that has seen his value go up. That price for Chris Carson, 25. In auction drafts only a couple weeks ago, Chris Carson was going at very good value, lower than that in the teens. So seeing him go to 25 now, not all that surprising, considering reports that he's pretty much dominated the running back position in Seattle and that he's expected to be more involved in the passing game. Mark Ingram, $13, Big Ben, $1. Sony Michel, $18. Interesting here, James White goes for more money than Sony Michel. It's a PPR format, so kind of makes sense there. But let's go ahead and rattle off a couple more names and then look at the individual rosters and the breakdowns. Josh Jacobs for $28. Sony Michel for 18, Tariq Cohen for 10, Allen Robinson for 11, Calvin Ridley for 12, Tyler Boyd for 4. So far, probably the biggest kind of great value here, $4 for Tyler Boyd. All right, I think that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and look at what I think will be a little bit more useful of the team breakdown by spending here. Obviously, the budget was $200 starting. Now, this is a little bit, it could have been organized a little bit better. I wish it was organized by just the quarterback, running back, wide receiver as the actual roster would look like, but it's all right. It will still get the message across. So here, team one, you can see their highest bid was DeAndre Hopkins for $55. So they pretty much here went hard on the wide receivers. They got DeAndre Hopkins and Odell Beckham for a combined value of $107. Not bad, but then you see they really waited on running backs. I would have hit the running back position earlier on than they did and go harder at some of those low-end RB1s that we highlighted that went for a decent price, because Leonard Fournette for $22, again, not bad value, but who's your next running back? It was Austin Eckler for $15. So whenever Melvin Gordon returns, Austin Eckler, you can't really rely on for an RB2. So who's going to be that RB2 for this team afterwards? I don't think there's a clear-cut guy. So this roster is going to have to make some moves there. Eric Ebron for $6. I think Ebron is going to take a step back. So even though I like the wide receivers on this team, the running backs are a big question mark. And to me, that's the most important position in fantasy. So I do think there are better teams in our league than this. Let's continue on with Aaron Rodgers, this team. Aaron Rodgers, David Johnson, Travis Kelce. So I think this individual went for a more balanced approach. You see, he's someone that paid up for a tight end, so he doesn't have to worry about that. David Johnson, Travis Kelce, and then he went for a high upside guys at the running back position. Other than David Johnson, James White, Josh Jacobs. So even though I do like David Johnson, I think the other running backs they've got some question marks. I'm not a big fan of Josh Jacobs on that Raiders offense. And then the wide receivers. You really look at the wide receivers. His starting wide receivers are DJ Moore and Cooper Kupp. That kind of makes me nervous in a PPR format. Larry Fitzgerald for $4, not bad value there, definitely. Marvin Jones for $2, Cortland Sutton, Mike Davis, Kenny Stills, Alexander Madison, Jordan Reed. So you can kind of see that it was a little bit more of a balanced roster probably here. Decent bench, but again, the wide receivers here really, the lack of wide receivers prevents me from giving this the best grade so far. Here, getting to this team number 3, this is actually probably one of my favorite rosters in our league. Christian McCaffrey for $72, Dalvin Cook for $41, great running backs. Robert Woods, $21, great value. I like Robert Woods a lot, my favorite Ram wide receiver. Mark Ingram for $13, probably the only pick kind of I didn't like on this roster. I'm not a big fan of the Baltimore offense. Tyler Lockett for $9 though. Evan Ingram for $9, great value. Darius Geis, a nice bench spot there. Drew Brees for $3. Marquez Valdez-Scantling for $5. I love him as an upside guy that could potentially be a sleeper. Naheem Hines, Peyton Barber, Dante Moncrief. So to me, so far, this is one of the better teams, and obviously it was achieved by going a little bit more aggressive, getting a top-notch running back, and then focusing on the running back position and getting high-end high upside wide receivers, I should say. So so far, this team is my favorite. Then let's look at my team. Actually, we have got Matt Ryan for $9, Todd Gurley for $50, Mike Evans for $40. Aaron Jones for $30, Devonta Freeman for $27, Tyler Boyd for $4, Julian Edelman for $17. Went ahead and got Carson Wentz as well for $6, Vance McDonald, Russell Wilson, who I have since then dropped for $1 just because no one bid on him, and he was a player I nominated and just ended up on the team. Ito Smith then to back up Devonta Freeman, Jalen Samuels, a guy that I like as a potential sleeper, Justin Tucker, and then Greg Olsen. So here you can see the amounts that were used, unused when it was all said and done. You can see I have $7 unused, so I could have done a better job there. I always try and get as close to that $0 amount as you can because it shows that you maximized your funds. But look, in my defense, I think I got some pretty good value on some of these players, so that's why that $7 is maybe a little bit higher than I was wanting. Tyler Boyd for $4, one of the biggest steals in the draft, in my opinion. Julian Edelman for $17 as well. Todd Gurley, let's go over Todd Gurley and Mike Evans, because obviously with my roster, you can see my mentality was, all right, I'm going to go ahead and go for high upside guys, get top 10 guys at each position. Todd Gurley, in my opinion, is going to be a top 10 running back. Mike Evans, same deal. Aaron Jones, Devonta Freeman, right outside the top 10, between top 10, top 15 running backs. Love the potential in PPR formats. Love their upside because of the offenses they play in. Then Tyler Boyd, again, $4. Julian Edelman for $17. I'm going to go ahead and my starting roster is going to be Julian Edelman, Mike Evans, Todd Gurley, Aaron Jones, Devonta Freeman. Tyler Boyd right now is a bench player. I love my bench. Tyler Boyd, Carson Wentz, Vance McDonald, or Greg Olsen. Specifically, I'm going to be starting Greg Olsen. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be my starting tight end. And then I've got that backup option in Vance McDonald. And I do think I have a deep enough bench to go ahead and execute some trades. So let's keep moving on. Team number 5, Tyreek Hill, Le'Veon Bell, Zach Ertz, Big Ben, Tariq Cohen, Mike Williams, Alshon Jeffrey, Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy. So again, I love the value for Tyreek Hill. Le'Veon Bell, not bad, but I just think they kind of waited too long afterwards on the nomination process, because look, even after Tyreek Hill, Le'Veon Bell, and Zach Ertz, they still had some money left over. They still had around $80 left over, and I think they could have gotten some more high-end players. The next most expensive guy they have is Mike Williams or Alshon Jeffrey. So even though they started kind of hot with those 3 big names, I think then they waited on their funds a little bit too much, which is a mistake that can happen in auction drafts. You spend a lot of money early on, and then decide to kind of budget management, and then you give up good value on other higher end talent. Then continuing on, we see a team here with Alvin Kamara, George Kittle, Marlon Mack, Tom Brady, the Bears defense, David Montgomery, Kenny Golladay, Will Fuller, Sterling Shepard. So this is a team that again, I like this team. You've got a high-end tight end. You've got a top-tier running back. We'll see what happens with Marlon Mack and the Colts and Andrew Luck, but you've got David Montgomery, a potential breakout at the rookie running back position. But the wide receivers, your starting wide receivers are Kenny Golladay and Will Fuller. So still, honestly, some of my preferred teams, probably biased here, but my own team, and then the team with right here, Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook so far. So keeping this thing going, we've got another team here, a little bit more balanced. Julio Jones, Kerryon Johnson, O.J. Howard, Stephon Diggs, Chris Carson, Brendan Cooks. You see Rashad Penny as a handcuff, Christian Kirk, Justin Jackson is a potential guy if the Melvin Gordon holdout continues. Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson is the starting quarterback. Depends how you feel about that. But for fantasy purposes, it could work. Julio Jones, top-notch wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, Brendan Cooks. But they waited on the running backs a little bit. So not too much running back depth here is my problem. Kerryon Johnson and Chris Carson, pretty much the only guys that you can comfortably start every single week. So one of those guys gets hurt. That's my biggest problem with this team. If you can tell me Carson and Kerryon Johnson stay healthy for the entire season and they both play up to their abilities or what they're expected to, I have no problem with the squad. But right now, my biggest problem is the depth at the running back position. Then let's look at another team that I really like here. Saquon Barkley, Juju Smith, Adam Thielen, Andrew Luck. Good value on Luck because of the injury situation. Phillip, Lindsay, Latavius Murray, Kiki QT, Austin Hooper, Darwin Thompson, Jerick McKinnon, Jalen Richard. So Barkley, stud. Juju Smith, stud. Adam Thielen, stud. Andrew Luck going to be a stud when he's healthy. Phillip Lindsay, I think this is what this team will come down to, how Phillip Lindsay plays, because I think you can find a good flex later on, but your RB2, you need to still get good production from them. If Phillip Lindsay does close to what he did last season, if Royce Freeman isn't a factor, I really like this roster. Then continuing on, we see James Conner roster here with Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen. So again, some pretty big three names right from start, but then again, I think this team waited too long for their next talent. Tevin Coleman, okay. Chris Godwin, I do like. So they've got some really good wide receivers, but their running backs after James Conner leave something to be desired. Tevin Coleman, Deion Lewis, Matt Breida, it's kind of just makes you shrug a little bit. Could be better. Then looking at this team, the all-or-nothing team, as I would like to call it, Derrick Henry, Melvin Gordon, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Brown, and you can obviously see why I call it that. Then Deshaun Watson, Allen Robinson, Dante Pettis, Jared Cook, James Washington, Adrian Peterson. So, I mean, look, if Ezekiel Elliott and Melvin Gordon play by week 1 both, this team is a lot better. But if not, it's going to be trouble, especially because this individual did not draft any of the handcuffs of these big-name running backs in Melvin Gordon and Ezekiel Elliott that are threatening to hold out. So that's my biggest problem there. Then Patrick Mahomes, this second to last team, Patrick Mahomes, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas. Love Michael Thomas, Sony Michel. We'll see what happens with the New England running back situation, but I think this was a first 5 picks that I don't mind too much. Again, Nick Chubb, I think the value is too much, the pricing. But if this individual trades Nick Chubb after several good weeks, I think they can get a lot in return. Then Hunter Henry, D.D. Westbrook. Look, not a lot on the bench here, but I do really like this starting roster for the most part. I think it's balanced, and this was a well-executed draft here. And then finally, we have this last roster: Damian Williams, Joe Mixon, T.Y. Hilton, Jarvis Landry, Miles Sanders, Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, A.J. Green, Lamar Miller, Corey Davis, David Njoku, Tony Pollard, Kalen Ballage. So this is by far, I think, the deepest bench in our league. But then the problem becomes your starting roster. Damian Williams and Joe Mixon, not too bad. Damian Williams, a question mark, however. The wide receivers, T.Y. Hilton, Jarvis Landry. I think that leaves a lot to be desired. Miles Sanders as a potential flex, or will it be Kenyon Drake? I do like A.J. Green when he returns. So again, this individual does have the benefit of a very good bench, but if the starting roster doesn't pan out like they hope, they might be in trouble. So let's go ahead, for the sake of this, just go to my specific team so it's a little bit more organized, and I'll give you guys my specific grade, kind of my mentality as to what really happened and how this draft went along as this goes ahead and loads. But pretty much, look, the way that I went about this is I knew that if I didn't get my top targets at the running back and wide receiver position, that I had a backup plan. And I always highlight this: have a backup plan in whatever draft you go into and be able to execute it. Be smart with your budget management. At the end, I had about $7 left over. I'm okay with that. I think I got good value on the guys that I acquired. I think I've got a decent bench, and I still think I got some high-end players. That's what I always try and preach as well. When you go ahead and draft players, it really does help if they are on high-octane offenses. And I believe that's what I have with Matt Ryan. Mike Evans, he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver. He's been doing it for several years now. Julian Edelman, one of the most consistent wide receivers, especially in PPR formats. Todd Gurley, I realize that a lot of this might come down to how he comes back with that arthritic knee, but I still think Todd Gurley, 75-85% of what we've seen of him in the last 2 years, is a top 10 running back. Aaron Jones, love his upside. Devonta Freeman, love his upside. You know, there's going to be some injuries. If there are some injuries here, it could get dicey, but I feel confident in my bench. I've got Tyler Boyd right now on my bench. I can go ahead and use him as a flex. I've got some trade potential here on this roster as well. I've already started looking at trades potentially, so I'll keep you guys posted on that. Vance McDonald, Greg Olsen, didn't spend up a lot of money on my tight ends, but again, I've been saying it since day one. Greg Olsen stays healthy, he's a top 5 tight end. Then Carson Wentz as a backup quarterback, a guy that I think can have a really big year, and potentially I can use as someone if Matt Ryan disappoints or something like that. And if someone else in my league gets desperate for a quarterback, well, I think I'm going to have potentially 2 top 5 guys or right around that here on this roster. Ito Smith then for a handcuff to Devonta Freeman. So obvious handcuff. I went ahead and invested a pick in him. Jalen Samuels and then Emmanuel Sanders. So already I've made a waiver wire pickup with Emmanuel Sanders. So honestly, guys, again, it's going to come out biased, but I absolutely love my team. Let me hear it in the comment section as far as the rosters that you've seen, the teams that you've seen, which roster you like the most. Let me know what you think of my roster. But again, my approach to this was go with high ceiling individuals. There are some question marks. I concede that. But as far as the wide receivers that I have, I think not too many question marks there. It comes down to the running backs. But Todd Gurley, Aaron Jones, Devonta Freeman, if those guys stay healthy, I feel extremely confident in what I've got here. And when I think about it, honestly, I might have some of the best running back depth out of all the rosters that we named with Gurley, Devonta Freeman, and Aaron Jones. And then, like we said, some of the backups. I like my bench. I'm giving this roster probably a B+. Might be a little bit bullish, but how I could even go to an A here. I think probably I have a top 4 roster in this league. Obviously, we'll see what happens from now to the start of the season. Then moving forward, if there's some major injuries, we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to hit the waiver wire process hard, which is what pretty much becomes the most important part of fantasy after your draft, paying attention to waivers and matchups. So, like I said, I'll keep everyone posted. Let me hear in the comment section what roster you like the most, if you agree with the way I went about things, what you think of my roster, and if you have any other fantasy questions of your own as well. And in the meantime, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.